He was last seen on October 12, 2018, at 10 a.m., leaving his secluded cabin. A reclusive tech innovator named Elias Vance. 3 days later, he was gone, and with him, his life's work, a custom-built server array. This wasn't a simple disappearance. This was a vanishing act where the central figure, a brilliant mind, evaporated from a locked-down world. The official report would try to explain it away. But the timeline doesn't add up right from the start. According to the witness statement of Jorge Rodriguez, Elias Vance's gardener, he saw Elias leaving that Friday morning. Elias, known for his meticulous routines, mentioned a pressing deadline. That detail matters. He wasn't the type to drop everything without a word, to simply vanish into the Redwood National Park. 3 days later, on October 15th, at 9 a.m., Rodriguez returned, concerned by Elias's unresponsiveness. The cabin was abandoned. More critically, the custom-built server array, a bespoke piece of hardware containing Elias's life's work, was missing. Now, here's where it gets strange. On October 17th, Detective Harding and Detective Evans from the local authorities arrived. Their initial search of the cabin and surrounding woods found no signs of forced entry, no struggle. This detail, or lack thereof, led them to a swift conclusion. Elias Vance had left voluntarily. A reclusive man. Perhaps he simply decided to disappear. That's what the police report from that day indicates. But a man like Elias, with his obsessive habits, a small notebook and pen in every pocket, constantly cleaning his glasses, the sole company of his old border collie, Algorithm, does not simply walk away from his entire digital world, from his very existence, without a trace. His sister, Sarah Vance, would soon confirm just how uncharacteristic this was. The local sheriff's department closed the active missing person case on November 5, 2018, classifying it as a voluntary disappearance, due to Elias's reclusive nature and a perceived lack of evidence. The case was cold after less than a month. But what about the missing server? The custom-built heart of his technological empire? The official version leaves this unexplained. A brilliant innovator does not abandon his life's work, particularly when it holds immense value. That's not a small inconsistency. This is where the investigation truly begins, by asking what was overlooked and what was dismissed too quickly. Because the truth, as it often does, lay buried beneath the assumptions. A life interrupted. The isolated cabin in the Redwoods, a sanctuary for Elias Vance, stood silent. Jorge Rodriguez, his gardener, grew increasingly concerned. By October 15, 2018, 3 days after Elias was last seen, the silence was too loud. Rodriguez found the cabin empty, save for one critical absence, Elias's custom-built server array. That's where it gets strange. This wasn't just a computer. This was a man's life work, meticulously crafted. Its disappearance wasn't a casual oversight, it was a calculated theft. The local authorities, however, saw it differently. Detectives Harding and Evans, according to the initial police protocol from October 17, 2018, noted no signs of forced entry, no struggle. This immediately led them to a conclusion. Elias Vance had simply left. He was a recluse, after all. A brilliant innovator, yes, but prone to vanishing acts, or so they thought. The official assessment, detailed in their report, was that Elias had voluntarily disappeared. But there was a detail that mattered immensely. Elias Vance was meticulous. Obsessively so. His sister, Sarah Vance, who arrived from out of state to officially report him missing on October 20, 2018, stressed this repeatedly. He carried a small notebook and pen in every pocket. He kept his glasses impeccably clean. His routines were rigid. Financial records obtained on October 20, 2018, showed no unusual activity, no large withdrawals, nothing to suggest a planned departure. The narrative of a voluntary disappearance, while convenient for the local sheriff's department, didn't fit the man. What doesn't add up is the fact that his custom server, the core of his intellectual existence, vanished with him. This wasn't a man who abandoned his life's work, yet by November 5, 2018, the active missing person case was closed, classified as voluntary. A brilliant mind, a missing server, and an investigation closing prematurely, a file gathering dust. For months, the case went cold. Until April 10, 2019. Miles from his cabin, near the Klamath River, a hiker made a grim discovery. Elias Vance's decomposed remains in a shallow grave. The cause of death, confirmed by the coroner's report from April 10, 2019, blunt force trauma to the head. Elias Vance hadn't vanished, he had been murdered. And a case dismissed as a voluntary disappearance was now, unequivocally, a homicide that changes everything. The first suspects. The first official police search of Elias Vance's cabin, conducted on October 17, 2018, yielded peculiar results. Detectives Harding and Evans found no signs of forced entry. No shattered windows, no kicked-in doors, no evidence of a struggle. This led to an initial, and in hindsight, critical, misjudgment. According to the police report, they suspected Elias simply left voluntarily. That detail matters because it colored their entire initial approach. A man known for his rigid routines, a recluse by nature, yet the first assumption was a voluntary disappearance. That's where it gets strange. According to Elias's sister, Sarah Vance, who arrived on October 20th, he didn't just leave. His custom-built server array, the core of his life's work, was gone. Elias's financial records, limited as they were, showed no unusual activity, no large withdrawals, no preparations for an extended trip. This was not a man who impulsively abandoned his life. The initial investigation, however, seemed to prioritize convenience over context. Detective Harding noted in his report that Elias Vance was known to be eccentric, a word that too often becomes a convenient dismissal. By November 5th, just weeks after Sarah reported him officially missing, the local sheriff's department closed the active missing person case. They classified it as a voluntary disappearance due to a lack of evidence. The server, the very centerpiece of Elias's existence, was viewed as a stolen item, separate from his disappearance. But what about the missing server itself? To Silas Mercer, the absence of a struggle and the disappearance of the server pointed to one thing: a carefully planned theft. The official version leaves this unexplained. A key question remained: who would benefit from Elias Vance's sudden disappearance? Who had access or knowledge to bypass any security and steal something so specific, so crucial to his work? The financial records provided by Sarah Vance, obtained on October 20, showed no suspicious transfers or hidden accounts. The motive wasn't immediately apparent through traditional means. The paper trail at this early stage offered no clear answers. The scene, devoid of struggle, yet missing the most valuable object, suggested not a random act, but something far more intimate, more calculated. The flawed investigation. The local sheriff's department closed the active missing person case on November 5, 2018. They classified it as a voluntary disappearance, citing a lack of evidence and Elias Vance's reclusive nature. That's where the first major problem begins, a critical oversight that would haunt the investigation for months. According to the police protocol from November 5, 2018, the official reason cited was no signs of foul play. But this conclusion ignored several crucial details. Jorge Rodriguez, Elias's gardener, confirmed on October 12, 2018, that Elias had mentioned a pressing deadline. Elias was meticulous. His life revolved around his work. His custom-built server array. His lifeblood was missing. Why would a man known for his rigid routines and deep attachment to his work simply vanish, leaving his life's passion behind? These were questions the initial investigation seemed unwilling to thoroughly explore. Elias's sister, Sarah Vance, had reported him officially missing on October 20, 2018. She emphasized her brother's meticulous habits and the uncharacteristic nature of his disappearance. She also provided access to his limited financial records, which, according to information obtained from Sarah Vance, showed no unusual activity, no sudden withdrawals, no signs of a planned escape. What doesn't add up is the speed at which this case was dismissed. The decision to close the case as a voluntary disappearance, particularly with a missing high-value server and no contact from a man known for his predictable habits, would prove to be a profound misjudgment. This early dismissal meant valuable time, evidence and leads were lost. Why was Elias's character, as described by his sister, so readily disregarded? And why was the missing server, the very core of his life's work, not considered strong enough evidence to push for a deeper inquiry? The police report from November 5, 2018 stated simply, "subject known to be reclusive," as justification. But reclusive is not synonymous with reckless abandonment. This is not a small inconsistency. It's a fundamental flaw in the initial assessment that allowed a murderer to walk free, at least for a time. The record shows a reluctance to look past the surface, a preference for convenience over true investigation. And that choice would lead to a far more tragic outcome than anyone could have initially foreseen. The unlikely alibi. The early assumption by local authorities was that Elias Vance simply vanished. But now, with a confirmed murder investigation by the FBI, the spotlight shifted. Agent Ramirez and her team weren't just looking for a killer, they were unearthing why the initial investigation failed. The previous chapter revealed how local law enforcement, led by Detective Harding, quickly closed the case. That decision, classifying Elias's disappearance as voluntary, would haunt them. It left critical evidence undiscovered for months. Elias Vance, the reclusive tech innovator, was last seen on October 12, 2018. His gardener, Jorge Rodriguez, confirmed this, stating Elias was focused on a pressing deadline. Within days, his cabin was found abandoned, and more importantly, his custom-built server array was gone. This wasn't a man running away. This was a crime scene waiting to be properly processed. Yet, according to police protocol from October 17, 2018, there were no signs of forced entry or struggle. That detail matters. Why assume voluntary departure when a vital piece of the victim's life work, his entire digital world, was missing? The local sheriff's department closed the active missing person case on November 5, 2018. It seemed an easy decision for a department stretched thin, an eccentric tech genius simply dropping off the map. But Sarah Vance, Elias's sister, knew better. According to her testimony, Elias was a creature of meticulous habits. He carried a small notebook and pen everywhere. He obsessively cleaned his glasses. His only companion was his border collie, Algorithm. This wasn't a man to spontaneously abandon his life, his work, or his dog. Here's where it gets strange. While the official investigation stalled, an online community was slowly, unknowingly, piecing together fragments. Sarah Vance, frustrated by the lack of progress, reached out to the Cold Case Chronicles forum. She talked about her brother, his work, and the missing server. This detail, overlooked by local authorities, resonated with one particular forum member, Cipher Seeker. According to an archived post from the Cold Case Chronicles forum dated July 4, 2020, Cipher Seeker flagged a dark web marketplace listing. What he found was chilling: a unique, custom-built server array with specifications matching Elias Vance's, put up for sale in late 2018. It was a digital ghost, a breadcrumb leading away from the redwood forest and into the shadowy corners of the internet. The seller's IP address was traced to a remote location in Oregon. This wasn't just a random server, this was Elias's server. And it was proof his disappearance was anything but voluntary. That's not a small inconsistency. That's a digital smoking gun. A lead that would finally crack open the flawed investigation that began so long ago. A new pair of eyes. Po miesach. Totre lokalna policja uznala za dobrowolne zniknięcie ściatki Eliasa Vance'a, tego samego, rezyduhajadzie u redwood z innowatora technologicznego odnalecjono, hiker, shallow grave, blunt force trauma. Tu nie było samowolne odejście, tu było morderstwo. Aj na gol, tu, ko zignorowano, stalo się sprawa priorytetowa, ale już dla kogoś innego. 15 kwietnia 2019 roku, baktokniu de 5 dni po makabrycznym odkryciu, sprawa Eliasa Vance'a osalta prejeta predes FBI. Nowy zespol, którym kierowała agentka Sofia Ramirez, wszedł do spały. Zgodnie z oficjalnym raportem FBI z tego dnia, sprawa Vance osalta zaklasyfikowana jako homicide case, a sużyski dotychczasowe dowody i dokumenty, te opasule segregatory wypełnione niemal niczym, trafili na federalne biurka. Agentka Ramirez. Analitezny umysł, świeże spojrzenie, a jako najważniejsze zasoby, których brakowało lokalnemu szeryfowi. To był moment, w którym, zgodnie z pieniężnymi, pownymi notatkami wormanymi agenci, uznano, że początkowe śledztwo wykazuje krytyczne niedopatrzenia i brak koordynacji. Dzięki teorii niedopatrzenia. Raport koronera doktora Ani Ritter z kwietnia 2019 roku jasno wskazał przyczynę śmierci. Było to uderzenie tepim nad nargelem głowy. Ale policyjny protokol oględzin mężczyzna zbrodni Z-17 pertanięcia 2018 roku. Ten zaledwie kilka dni po zgłoszeniu zaginięcia Eliasa, odnotował brak jakichkolwiek śladów walki czy włamania. Te dwie informacje, kiedy zestawione ze gubą, nie tylko się wykluczali, ale wręcz krytyczali o interwencję. Po odnalezieniu ciała stało się jasne, że w kabinie, skąd znikł Elias, musiały być ślady. Musiały być przeoczone. Agentka Ramirez, przelegając akta, koncentrowała się na tych wczesnych etapach śledztwa. Szukając technik, szczelin, czegokolwiek, co mogłoby rozświetlić ten poczorchały, mroczny okres. Bo oto mieliśmy zaginionego czembleka, gdy staje się ofiarą morderstwa, a na miejscu jego zniknięcia nie znaleziono nic, co by sugerowało napaść. Koś ewidentnie nie zgadzało się z oficjalnym obrazem. I dopiero ten nowy zespół, z nowymi oczami, zaczął dostrzegać problem. Tu, że Elias Vance był reklusywuzem, jego zamilowanie do izolacji, to wszystko stało się zbyt wygodną wymówką dla wcześniejszego śledztwa. To była wygodna historia. Ale dowody teraz, wszystkie miesięcy plenie, opowiadali inna. Te świadki, odnalezione obok seki klamat, wiele mil od jego kabiny. One opowiadali o czymś pali innym. One opowiadali o tym, że ktoś musiał go zabrać. Ktoś musiał go zabić. I ktoś musiał umieścić go tam, gdzie go znaleziono. Ale w jaki sposób? Ten kawałek układanki, ten kluczowy element, jak ciało ofiary, tiramila zniknie dobrowolnie, lazało się w plikim grobie. To było pytanie, to agentka Ramirez miała zamiar zadać. I miała zamiar lenate otawady. The digital footprint. Agent Ramirez's team had reviewed the initial investigation, identifying critical oversights, but even with fresh eyes, the physical evidence was scarce. No clear motive, no obvious suspects. That's where it gets strange, because the breakthrough wouldn't come from a dusty case file, but from the glowing screen of a laptop, from the unlikeliest of sources. Elias Vance, with his meticulous habits and reclusive nature, rarely left a digital trace beyond his work. Yet, as his sister, Sarah Vance, grew increasingly frustrated with the official lack of progress, she turned to an unconventional avenue. On June 22, 2020, Sarah posted Elias's story on an online true crime forum, Cold Case Chronicles, highlighting the missing server and the suspicious circumstances. She detailed her brother's life, his singular focus, the custom-built server array that held his life's work, now vanished alongside him. This wasn't a call for armchair detectives to speculate. This was a plea for expertise, for anyone with the technical acumen to see what the official channels had missed, and someone answered. On July 1, 2020, a forum member operating under the handle CipherSeeker flagged something extraordinary. According to digital analysis conducted by CipherSeeker on that date, a dark web marketplace listing from late 2018 advertised a unique, custom-built server array. Its specifications, its very architecture matched Elias's. This was not a coincidence. This was a digital echo, a footprint left by something that should have vanished. The seller's IP address was traced to a remote location in Oregon. That detail matters, because for the first time since Elias Vance disappeared, the case had a solid, verifiable lead. The missing server, once thought to be an irrelevant detail, now pointed directly towards a potential suspect, and perhaps a motive. The online community had done what trained investigators couldn't or wouldn't. They had found the first concrete evidence in a case that had gone cold. The missing link. Marcus Thorne, apprehended at his isolated Oregon property, didn't panic. He had an alibi, a sophisticated digital construct designed to place him thousands of miles away. According to the record from Marcus Thorne's interrogation on July 7, 2020, he claimed to have been in another country at the time of Elias Vance's disappearance. It was a cybernetic alibi, a carefully crafted digital footprint that seemed to make his presence in the Redwood cabin impossible. But Agent Ramirez, with her analytical mind, wasn't convinced. She knew something felt off. This was where the combined expertise of law enforcement and the online community truly converged. The FBI's digital forensic team began to slowly dismantle Marcus Thorne's elaborate alibi. They worked backward, tracing every login, every timestamp, every claimed activity. It was a painstaking process, a digital archaeological dig, and that's where they found it. According to the forensic expertise by Agent Ramirez and Dr. Thorne, the digital trail revealed a fleeting, almost imperceptible anomaly. A brief, milliseconds-long connection to a local VPN server originating from an IP address within Marcus Thorne's isolated property. It was a single, tiny data packet, a dropped thread in a vast digital tapestry. That detail matters. It was enough for Agent Ramirez to bring in cipher seeker Dr. Aris Thorne. Aris, who had already provided the crucial dark web lead, was uniquely positioned to understand the intricacies of his brother's digital deception. With his help, the team pieced together what happened. Marcus Thorne had used a micro VPN redirect through his home server, an attempt to mask his actual location while still accessing the wider internet from within his property. It was a brilliant, almost flawless maneuver, but it left a trace, a ghost in the machine. A ghost that now confirmed Marcus Thorne was indeed on his property at the precise time he claimed to be halfway across the world. The timeline didn't add up for Marcus Thorne. His digital alibi, once impenetrable, now had a critical, fatal flaw. This small inconsistency, a tiny, overlooked detail, was the missing piece. It completely shattered his defense, placing him squarely at the scene, revealing his manipulation. The interrogation room. Marcus Thorne, apprehended at his isolated property in Oregon, now sat in the cold, windowless room, the weight of digital evidence pressing down. Agent Ramirez, alongside Detective Evans, presented him with the undeniable trail of his shadow broker identity. The initial questions were direct. Where was Elias Vance's server? According to the interrogation transcript from July 7, 2020, Thorne's first response was a calculated silence, a tactic often used to buy time. But the FBI agents had already peeled back layers of his digital life. They presented him with the dark web marketplace listing from late 2018, featuring the unique server array, Elias's server. They showed him the IP address trace, meticulously documented by CipherSeeker, leading directly to his remote Oregon compound. There was no room for denial on that front. The remnants found on his property confirmed it. Thorne had stolen the server, that much was clear. But the larger question remained. Why? What prompted the murder of Elias Vance? The interrogation transcript reveals Thorne's initial attempts to paint himself as merely a digital opportunist, someone who found valuable tech and resold it. He claimed Elias was already gone when he entered the cabin. However, Agent Ramirez then introduced a critical piece of information, one Thorne couldn't easily dismiss. Forensics confirmed blunt force trauma as the cause of Elias's death. This wasn't a disappearance, it was a homicide. The timeline of his own movements, painstakingly reconstructed from his online activity and cell tower pings, placed him squarely in the Redwood National Park area on October 12, 2018, the day Elias Vance was last seen alive. That detail mattered. Thorne's digital alibi, the elaborate web of VPNs and proxy servers designed to place him thousands of miles away, began to unravel. The slight, almost imperceptible trace of a momentary connection to his home network that was the flaw. It was enough to confirm his physical presence. The room grew tense. According to the interrogation transcript, the moment of confession came not with a bang, but with a whisper. Faced with irrefutable evidence of his presence, the stolen server, and the true cause of Elias's death, Marcus Thorne finally broke. He admitted he'd stolen the server, not just for profit, but for the underlying proprietary technology, Elias's life's work. He confessed that when Elias discovered him, startled, Thorne panicked. He struck Elias, delivering the fatal blow. He detailed how he then attempted to dispose of the body near the Klamath River and systematically tried to erase his digital footprints. The full, terrible truth of Elias Vance's murder, almost 2 years after his disappearance, finally emerged, not through forensic breakthroughs or eyewitness accounts, but from the intersection of digital forensics and a killer's ultimate breakdown under pressure. Justice echoes. Nasali sondoe zapadla cisca, cieska wychekujeka. Marcus Thorne stal tam, jakby czas I prestrin stracili znaczenie. Verdikt. Wini. Tu był koniec długiej I kretej drogi. Drogi tetra zaczęła się odległej kalifornijskiej scenerii, gdzie zaginał pewien wizjoner. A wolce widał jakby się mogło, zloju Lebrons być szybko. Kali ten skomplikomaj labirynt dowodów. Sprzeczności milczenia włączono an swój punkt centralny, w postaci cyfrowego śladu I nieco mnie determinacji. skazanie Marcusa Tornea za morderstwo Eliasa Vancea oraz za kradzież jego własności nie było tylko świadectwem prokuratury. Bio triumphem wytrwałości Sarah Vance, siostry Eliasa, telkra nigdy nie przestała szukać prawdy. I triumphem nieoczekiwanej sili, społeczności internetowej, telkra udzielniła tu, kooficjalne śledztwo mogło przeoczyć. Zapis de przeslukania Marcusa Tornea z lipca 2020 roku udzielnił pilnie motywów. Niestabilny finansowo, uzależniony od internetu. Marcus widział od technologii Eliasa klucz do regulowania własnych problemów. System. Gody Elias budował. Dla Marcusa nie tylko lupem. Obietnika wolności, ucieczki od własnych frustracji. Konfrontacja terra doprowadzila do śmierci Eliasa, biula wynikiem paniki, jak zeznał Marcus. Uderzenia typim na targezę mgłowe, tu nil plan, tu viola reakcja. Okruciejąc to tek chwili, brutalności desperacja, pozostawili trwali ślad. Raport koronera z kwietnia 2019 roku jasno skazał, że przyczyną śmierci ewo obrażenia głowy, potwierdzanych zeznania Tornea. Sprawa Eliasa Vancea była nie tylko tragedia jednego człowieka. To studium prapietku lotre pokazuje, jak system potrafi zawieść. Początkowe działania lokalnej policji. Telka sklasyfikowała to jako dobrowolne zniknięcie, ewuli poważnym blegiem. To opóźniło sprawiedliwość, pozwoliło mordercy myśleć, że jest bezpieczny. Ale to olnins podkreśla znaczenie nauczyć na targez, szyfrować, to tresztaja się na obronie walce o prawdę. Rola kifersekera czyli doktora Elisa Tornea, brata mordercy, to jeden z najbardziej strasających i paradoksalnych aspektów tej sprawy. Jego wiedza cyfrowa, jego determinacja w przeszukiwaniu dark webu dostarczyła kluczowego dowodu. Brata, chodzi nieświadomie doprowadził do jesia brata. Moralny dylemat, z którym musiał się zmierzyć, jest niewyobrażalny. To nie był film sensacyjny, to było życie. A to pokazuje, że nawet w najciemniejszych zakamarkach życia prawda może wyjść na światło dzienne. Historia Eliasa Vancea tu przypomnienie, że oto sprawiedliwość była ślepa i powolna, tu determinacja, zamrom ze strony rodziny, jakie nieznajomisz, może że ostatecznie przyroczy. Tu olnins przestroga, wersja cyfrowej nie ma prawdziwego anonimoposi. Każdy ślad, każdy bit, każda transakcja. On zostawiają w sieci cyfrowy tatuaż, choć może zostać odczytany, zazy. Dla jednych to koniec sprawy, dla innych to popuszczek na łez ery w śledztwach. Sprawa zamknięta na razie. Jeśli interesuje Cię, gdzie prowadzacie cyfrowe slaki i jak małe detale zmieniają żustko, zasubskrybuj do Evidence Logi dolacz do naszej społeczności. Wkrótce przyjrzymy się kolejnych sprawy, gdzie prawda ukrywa się w cieniach.